This is your host James, and I'm delighted to be talking to today's author, Gerald Clark. We have been battling through some heavy-hitting shows. Don't forget, they're all in the playlist for you to easily find. Of course, you can check out today's author. You'll find everything Gerald does there, background information, and he's got an excellent blog there as well. You can also check out his latest document on Nibiru, which is super fascinating and well-researched and very enlightening with the knowledge pertaining within. So back on the line with me, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm back with you.
Oh, great.
Hey, I wanted to take this minute to just right up front, and I want to talk to all of your listeners and my listeners. Mm-hmm. Listen, James is spreading information to the point where people are stealing it from him. So please support him by listening to his show, subscribing to his Capricorn Radio, and really support him.
Thank you, brother.
Please.
Thank you. I give as much of it as I can for free, Gerald, but yes, I can't devote my life to doing something without making some sort of money to eat and live and travel a little bit to do the things I need to do. But thank you for that, Gerald. I really appreciate that. And yes, I have been battled for 3 days with copyright fraud, but I'm surviving. Yeah, Gerald, I just wanted to plug in your websites there to get people there to go and listen. I know you do a lot of background information on what you do, and that's wonderful. And it's very easy for me to get complacent and just do the shows with you and enjoy them, but I have to do that. But here we are, Gerald, back into Emerald Tablet 7, the Seven Lords.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Let's get it straight to it, Gerald. Let's launch into this one.
Well, we left off with Thoth encouraging us to use all the armament tools that he called magic to fight off the dark. And Thoth encourages us to keep seeking light through our dark paths, recognizing that there's dark poured on your path. And it's coincident with where you are in your chakras, so don't forget that. Mm-hmm. He also tells us that all is created based on order and light, which emanates from the eternal source. I like this one. He calls it the infinite brain. I know. And then the very next point he brings up is, oh, by the way, we're told that even infinity itself changed far in space. Now, there's something.
That's a mind bender, Gerald.
Infinity is going to change at some unprescribed point in future time. He tells you that later as well, expounds on it a little bit, as he's having a discussion with the Seven Lords, and that's what this tablet is named after, is these cycle masters who say they came from beyond the space-time, where they were formless, from the great void, and each one having their duty, their function in controlling certain cycles. Now, when I see that and realize that multiple times I've affiliated them with the Hindu gods that are controlling the quantized levels of consciousness in your chakras, I go on to say, most likely, they're controlling the signal amplitude, phase, and frequency of the composite energy allowed at each chakra. Mm. Now, how would they do that? Either using an external energy field to shut you down or to put you in a life circumstance where you don't access those. Either one would work.
Wow.
And so you think about that and go, wow, that's kind of terrible. This first cycle master, his job is to make sure everybody starts out enveloped in darkness.
I do this when I'm on the shows, Gerald. I stop and I still ponder again. I've listened to the audiobook, I read the book, I've took the knowledge in several times, but there's so much to it. And when I listen to these Emerald Tablets, Gerald, Anunnaki of Nibiru, don't there, Gerald, but pertinent to Mercury Rising, 7 Planet Mercury Rising, where the knowledge that's in these tablets, Gerald, is spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced. There's technical stuff in there. There's stuff pertinent.
You get exposed to it.
There's stuff just pertinent to our origins. I mean, I have to keep checkpointing this for people that are just checking in on these shows. I mean, I don't see anything bad in there, Gerald. And they seem to be
some of the most profound knowledge you have. If there was a handbook of life to be written for us, most of this stuff would have been in it.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what you were up against from the word go.
And I know there's negative people out there and naysayers, but if you look at the information in it, just look at it. It's spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced, and pertinent, profound. It's about our origins, our civilization, where we can go, what we can achieve. Tell me that's not something worth reading.
Well, you know I actually thought about this. I was thinking deeply about whether I should include this Emerald Tablets in my book. It was a big decision for me. I was like, well, it'll take up a lot of the space of the book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of deep stuff in there, but this is Thoth's deepest knowledge. How could I not present that right now when what we're facing is ascension or destruction? So it was so relevant to me that I thought, and I listened to the other stuff that had been done on the Emerald Tablets on the internet, mm-hmm. and not all of them, but some of them I just found repulsive, mm-hmm. especially after. You know what the ultimate factor for me was on these tablets is the way they made me feel after I exposed my eyes and my ears to them. That's our ultimate decider of whether something is right for us in our path. You know it, and I know it. And I challenge anybody to read or listen to my feelings that's in it.
You know what, even as the audiobook, Gerald, which is great, and I love that you took the time to personally do your own audiobook, and I know I gave that to our friend Publish of Italy, and he's loving the audiobook at the moment, by the way. So just a little feedback on that. It's great that you took that time.
Perfect. Yeah, really great guy. Thanks for introducing me to him.
Yeah, and I'm glad that, that you took that time, Gerald, because to hear an author talk about their own audiobook, and it's great because you can come back to the Emerald Tablets, you can be lazy, you can have them read for you, that's great, but you just can't kind of sit down and just want to read these all in the one day.
Yeah,
well, you can.
I know. You have to. Well, he tells you almost to make a religion out of it, to keep reading it. He tells you right at the beginning, you got to read this 100 times.
It's like an encyclopedia, Gerald. You don't read an encyclopedia from start to finish, A to Z, and go, that was great knowledge in there. You don't do that, and I just want to put this out to the audience because there's a format there. There's a list of tablets. Each one tackles something very, very pertinent to us as human beings, that our very essence. And like you say, we're in this spiritual warfare game at the moment, and the stakes are high. It's ascension or destruction. And take each tablet, look at it in its own merit, each one, do it by section if you have to, and come back to it. If you don't get it straight away, come back to it. You'll get it,
Yeah. Well, there's something else that kind of comes out in this. We started talking about the models of this order of reality that's been created for us, obviously intentionally, and we called it a holography, and then connected it briefly, you'll see, to the current models of parallel dimensions and string theory. So when you see that those are connected with exactly what he's saying here, our scientists are just now catching up with them. So here's what he says. He says, "For know ye that which is formed truly is formless, having only form to our eyes." In other words, it's a false perception, the illusion of transient matter. How many times have we been told this? Yet we pound on the table and we throw back the beer and we go, we want the blue pill, not the red pill, right? Right from the Matrix. I want the illusion, not the reality, because the reality is sometimes hard to swallow.
Isn't the Matrix movie, Gerald, just so riddled with all this stuff? I mean, you've got the woman called Trinity, you've got the red pill, blue pill scenario, the enslavement of humanity. Isn't it so pertinent to what we're talking about?
Well, you start to ask yourself, how's it any different than what he's telling you here? Is that, long ago these dark lords came here, set up a system to enslave everyone through various sensory modes, and even at the soul level. If you're gullible enough to throw your alliance behind one of the names that they say is your savior for, or whatever, or your God, then they got you. Think about it like a vote at the end of a zodiacal house. It's a big chess game of the manipulation of these avatars that don't even know they're avatars.
I grew up in a Catholic country, Gerald, and the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And I just went, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself in the same class as sheep. What do you want me to say, that I'm actually a sheep? And this is what they get. This is what they brainwash people in a Catholic state, And
I know, and I don't want to be a Catholic basher, but I do want to say that I was married to someone who was Catholic for many, many years, and actually went through RCIA and the whole thing, and saw it from the inside out, and had significant problems with the Nicene Creed, saying they had the truth and everybody else has a lie, basically, by saying that. And lots of other inside things relative to that particular Roman Catholic. And you think about Rome. Where do you think Enlil went after he left Greece? He had his signature all over that city, including their religion and their rulership patterns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you put two and two together. The mafia came out of Rome. The Catholic religion through the czars came out of Rome, and the papacy came out of Rome. And you still want to subscribe to those people that were throwing Christians in our Colosseum and feeding them to lions as part of our stimulus. Remember we talked about the territorial imperative.
Sure. I subscribe
right?
to.
Took. Mm-hmm. As long as you pay your taxes, you can be part of the Roman Empire. But and we'll incorporate your religion, right? So you can be nationalistically identified with this terrain, right? So that resolves the territorial imperative. Mm-hmm. They didn't take their land away. But at the same time, they had to give them some stimulus because now there wasn't the war. So they gave them the Colosseum. This is no different than like I've said, the NFL, UFC, all the stimulus that's given to you.
Release mechanisms.
It's required.
Release mechanisms. Primitive.
So.
I subscribe to a life called James, by the way, Gerald.
Yeah. Well, you walk your own path. That's why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, okay, let's continue, Gerald. I mean, I get sidetracked sometimes. I have to mention that there, though, because it's the nature of what we're talking about.
Well, now that we kind of did this Nibiru update, and we're talking about the cycles of planets, this next point is very pertinent, where he gives us confirmation that the seven masters, these beings, these ones that came from beyond the void, who were formless, okay, meaning they could take on a form as an avatar, but they didn't start that way. Mm-hmm. That they were planetary cycles. Now think about that. So in other words, how the evolution of consciousness is allowed to proceed as a function of the interaction of various cycles. Now, later in this holographic model that we drew, and I don't know that I've actually talked about it for a show yet, but in that model, he describes 9 lower dimensions, 9 parallel dimensions, 14 lower dimensions, and then the higher dimensions that go through the duat. 2 dimensions there. The dimension on Arulu is the 6th dimension, where he says his ancient home is, that he gave up to be here doing what he's doing, and that 7 and 8 were cycles of chaos, or dimensions of chaos, in the cosmic chaos of creation and destruction. And then the 9th cycle was actually where the creator of all, this infinite brain that he refers to, lives in a circle of light. So and the discussion of light connecting back to this creator of all is epic, because he says everything is formed from light, and you'll see that later. So now we get back to the idea of the properties of light, interaction with matter, and what we perceive to be real. So this might as well be a philosophy class in nature and reality. It's so profound. Sure. But this is what we're actually... Keep in mind this idea of this that's projected through these limited sensors that you have called your eyes and your ears.
This is a very important word you said there, Gerald. Philosophy. This is a philosophy. If you like it, look at it. If you like it, study it. If you like it, follow it. It doesn't have to be, like you say, a religion. But you can be that if you want. Drum it into yourself if you like it. It's there for the taking, and it's wonderfully laid out in all these tablets by subject matter, and it's got a great purpose behind it.
Yeah, well, I listened to your show the other day where you were talking about how the hedges on the Irish land looked like they were aligning to various points in the solstices and the equinoxes, and how they discovered the idea of precession. Mm-hmm. Well, all of a sudden now you look at these 7 masters of these cycles, 3 through 9, and they say they're affiliated with a function correlating consciousness with a repeating cycle of time. Mm-hmm. In other words, a wobble, okay? Most likely like the Great Precessional Year that's caused by the wobble in the Earth, are about 23.5 degree tilt, whatever it is now. Probably a lot more than that with our last update on Nibiru possibly tilting us off our orbit. But, this Great Precessional Year, I wanted to bring some emphasis to that. This doesn't happen very often. This is the slippage of the zodiacal wheel 1 degree every 72 years, like you said in your show. Well, we know that's true. So if it was a perfect circle, we'd be talking 360 times 72, which is exactly 25,920. But people talking about expansion theory and stuff, saying the Earth's rotation due to expansion is slowing, that this precessional wobble cycle has slowed to less than 25,920. I can't verify that, but that's possible. Either way, when you go all the way around a circle and land back where you started, this is usually a time to reflect on things. Like when you're a child and you grew up in this city, and then you went and lived your life in Europe, and then you went back to the city where you grew up, well, you have a very different perspective of where you grew up. Everything looks different, right? It's a time to reflect on the change. Well, that's what's happening right now. We've seen the old world order before, where people are complete serfs, have no rights, and serve only. We've seen different forms of government being, even in our lifetimes, we've seen communism and atheism and capitalism and Marxism. You know, we've seen a lot of different models that we get to look at and go, yeah, that was good, that was bad. You know, so it's part of the process of us evolving. Well, since we've seen all that in the information age, and at the place we are in the last stage of the Mayan calendar, which already has gone by, according to Ian Lungold, in October 2011. Well, we've gone all the way around. So add some, go through the galactic center, whatever it is. Could we be coming out of it now from 2011 to 2014? Possibly. But right at the apex of that is when we should be experiencing the height of our universal and galactic consciousness. Well, look around in the planet. Isn't that happening? There's a lot of people waking up. They may feel unempowered to do anything about the darkness that's going on with wars and famine and plagues and everything, and weather modification and everything else. But at the same time, this information in the last tablet gave you the power to bind those forces that are doing what they're doing and believe what he said. So I wanted to just bring that point around, is, you know, it's ascension time, essentially. You know, there's going to be a separation, in my opinion, after the smoke settles and the transition of the Anunnaki Council on rank 50 happens. A new order's coming in, but it's not the New World Order that's trying to assert itself, raising an army of its own and controlling the world. That's not what was intended. Okay, that's the insurgents trying to prevent it from happening.
They're just jumping on the bandwagon.
Very special time. This knowledge that are in these tablets allows you the way to participate in the energetic ascension that Thoth told us he's had in these tablets since he wrote them, and has intended to be the pathway for mankind.
These elitist group, if you want to call them that, this New World Order, they're just jumping on the bandwagon, Gerald, for the ascension game of procession. Whether they can get there or not, if they can't, they're going to stop other people getting there. So this is an ascension cycle that repeats, like you say, in that procession, and it's like, it's there, the evidence is there. The ancient cultures all knew this, Gerald.
Right.
And
it's like a vote. You know, if you vote for them, then you belong. You enslaved in their mob. You know, you take the blue pill. You don't wake up to the truth, and you go on eating steak and drinking your wine and serving the senses of illusion that you have. That's what it's indicative of. That's what it's symbolic of.
And did you
your
notice
senses? And your interpretation of those in your mind are not what's real.
Did you notice that in the movie The Matrix, they had to just put that in there, where somebody who would give up all his rights and all his everything to succumb to the not knowing process? The guy who wanted back in the Matrix, he was sitting eating his steak going, I don't even know if this is real anymore, just put me back in the game.
Yeah, it wasn't just that. He wanted a powerful position, he wanted wealth, he wanted security, and he wanted it easy. He didn't want to have to slave anymore. Well, you know, you're going to see in this tablet in particular, Thoth is going to tell you that darkness is poured on your path, the pursuit is hard, and you got to work for it. So that idea of succumbing to the cultural offerings of the fruits of illusion is really symbolic in that movie, and it's very symbolic in these documents, and telling you that's one of the ways they have held you hostage in the hologram. You get now through these writings to come out of that during the great year. Isn't that a coincidence? who timed the release of these documents so that we'd be at a place where we could understand them and be doing a radio show on them right as we're passing through the galactic center? Think about that.
Sure.
That's pretty good planning.
It's not bad timing at all, Gerald, is it?
No, not at all. So, you know, based on that and that timing, listen, it would make a lot of sense to me that the 7, I call them chakra police.
I love this terminology, Gerald.
These 7 beings that get named in the ritual in the last tablet, they're very significant. And even Thoth pays heedance to them and learns from the 9th cycle master about much more advanced knowledge. So, you know, so these beings are even at a higher level than Thoth.
What I like about...
So it makes sense to me they'd be on high alert when we're passing through the place where we're going to reach our highest consciousness. That means number 8 and number 9 are actually going to get some activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if our latent circuits activated by the energy in the GC, the Galactic Center, are triggered like Timothy Leary said, which I think would explain a lot about this time-delayed consciousness evolution that we're seeing.
The model that we're talking about here, Gerald, it makes so much more sense to me. From all the knowledge that I've looked at, it was never a simple, okay, some people came here, they tweaked us, and we were slaved, and we just woke up one. That's too simple a model. It just couldn't happen like that. The way we talk about the latent circuits, how there was a battle to, if they could just have enslaved us to a certain level, like at a certain level of awareness, like 30%, or we want to put a figure on it, and they would have just left us there, they would have done it. They probably would have. They would have tweaked on it, but like that, Gerald, you know, we have this. They were only working with the model that they had, and the model that they had was we were going to ascend anyway with this natural cycles. And what we're talking about here, that these latent circuits will eventually program us to ascend over time and over ascension, is going to happen. Like you say, the chakra police were on high alert, Gerald, for sure.
Yeah, so that really was interesting to me, because one of those particular circuits that was one of the highest ones that causes beings to reprogram all their other circuits once it reaches that level was this reprinting circuit that he talks about. And that was in Chapter 2 under the subheading, Futons Anyone, in my book.
Mm.
So when that happens, it creates a newly reprogrammed being that's ready to operate in this new dimensional shift. And I truly believe that's what's happening. I mean, I think it's amazing what's happened in the last few years in terms of consciousness.
Yeah. I think, you know what I see more, Gerald, of? I see people becoming more intelligently aware, and I say intelligent, becoming more aware, and then that back feeds into their intelligence, and that makes them more aware. So when I say intelligently aware, it's a double term. And then I see more people becoming more robotic, more brain dead, less aware. You know, I see them going to the opposite ends of the spectrum. And it's people from the middle ground that are going either left, either more dumbed down, or other people are becoming more aware and more awake.
Yeah, that actually shows up in this tablet, or the last one, where he's talking about the variety of the levels of darkness and light. There were masters that were adept at darkness and masters that were adept at light, and they were always at war. So it's interesting to think about this energy at the galactic center that we never really talk about very much. You know, the sun goes through its cycles and is releasing its energy, and the stuff that faces toward the galactic center often feeds the intense gravitational difference there caused by the black hole at the center. And apparently it's like 14 trillion miles in diameter. It's huge, right? So, you know, imagine that spinning, bringing all this other matter around and turning it into this spiral plane that you look at from the Hubble telescope.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so now all of a sudden if a solar system like ours passes through this central band of this dark rift, what the Mayans call it, you're being exposed to higher energy states. And unless we had our Van Allen belts around us, we would not survive that, in my humble opinion. So, you know, some of the chem spraying and everything that's been going on to shield radiation probably had a lot to do with the gamma rays and the other radiation that are coming from this dark rift. And nobody's really talked about it openly at all. Well, in my human antenna theory model, well, when you get exposed to this other energy that's at the Milky Way center as our planet passes along with our sun, this really heightens the human energy body, which Thoth knew about, and he encoded it in the Mayan calendar. So he's carrying this caduceus representing that very process and coding it in the calendar. Well, we're just now going through that. And I think that's the amazing thing to realize right now is we have the opportunity to reach our highest energy state on it.
The Mayans were masters of this knowledge, weren't they, Gerald?
They certainly were. You know, and the level of scientific knowledge that's encoded in their astronomy, it should be very clear now when you realize it came from Thoth, that he was Quetzalcoatl, just as we stated, and so did Sitchin state that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all the symbols are there. You know, realize that Teotihuacan, right next to the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, mercury was just found in large quantities below the temple. Well, you know, we know they use mercury for leaching out gold from ore, but that's also Thoth's other name was Mercury. He was known as Mercury to the Romans. And he chose that because it's the mysterious liquid metal that an alchemist would know about in the periodic table of the elements. And him being the first alchemist, you should be able to put two and two together. Thoth was Quetzalcoatl.
There is two elements that are so remarkable for their properties, not because of their currency or their weight, or mercury and gold. Gold because it doesn't ever decay. You can applicate, and mercury too.
Check this one out.
Mercury too.
Check this one out. Do you realize on the periodic table of the elements, one of the metals that was mined, excuse me, that was mined in Atlantis, no longer shows up on that table? That some divers off of Spain, I believe it was, recently said they found at a shipwreck.
Orichalcum.
That was orichalcum.
Yeah, I did.
That was more precious than gold.
I did a little newscast on that one. Yeah, that was a really interesting article that surfaced there. Doesn't seem to be much more on that, but they definitely reckoned that orichalcum existed, and it was a metal that they mined, definitely.
Wait till we find one of these breastplates of armor that they made out of them, or a spear or something, you know, that was made out of this stuff, and we finally have it in a museum.
Wow.
Anyway, well, so these 7 cycle masters are here living in the halls of Amente. They're surrounded by this crystal called the Flower of Life that's hitting their whatever avatar bodies they're occupying to renew them continuously in order to be in this dimension. And they've come here as part of the intercession on behalf of mankind to steer us toward our highest evolutionary state. So, you know, this brings me as a scientist back to stuff I wrote in my first book was, well, what is our highest evolutionary state? And well, I think we both as engineers agree that's energy. The amount of energy that you can infuse or synthesize into your material form, wherever it's held, whether you believe it's in the chakras or into the endocrine system like Edgar Cayce espoused, or whether you believe it's in these energetic lines that show up in acupuncture from the Chinese, or whether it's the vortices that are accessed through Reiki, or any other model that you want to choose. These guys were responsible for those levels of consciousness to correlate with the cycles. So the idea that a planetary cycle is related to some timing event in your consciousness is the point I want to get across. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, is that the figure of it, like my equation 5a shows, what your maximum human energy is? Is this their way of saying, this is how far along you are at this very important time at the great year, the precessional wobble cycle that's just come around? This is the time you're going to get judged, in my opinion, is what I'm saying. And the judgment is an energy assessment based on how much you evolved your consciousness, given all the darkness you had poured on your path, plus all the light beings you had accessible to you to navigate your way out.
Just like the feather of truth.
It's the holographic simulation game. And here we are.
Just like the feather of truth against the weighing of the heart.
Exactly. I know you've said that. I need to go read the Egyptian account again in their Book of the Dead. Very profound. But the Tibetan Book of the Dead was very similar.
I have that on the
going through trials once this happens.
Yeah.
Well, who do you think these 7 chakra master or cycle masters are? Well, every time you level in your chakras, they're the ones that actually devise your test and assess you. That's amazing to know that.
Wow, I can't believe we're going to be in Mayan territory in September, Gerald.
Yeah, that ought to be interesting. Think
we're going to
about
be in the land of the Maya.
Consciousness that's that's captured still in those rocks that were built with metal and granite and in particular. So structure is function is energy, right? So when you build things structurally according to an architect, whether it's sacred geometry or what have you, you can build structures that change the experience of energy locally. And I think with some of your research, I know you're probably an expert on that.
I can't believe they found Mercury underneath a pyramid, and I'm like, hello, China, Mercury underneath the pyramid.
Yeah, I know. So you start looking at how advanced you had to be to understand that Mercury absorbs all other metals, including gold, as you're getting it from mines and alluvial sources. Why the gold? Well, then there's the starfire gold that showed up in the temples affiliated with these people, so they were prolonging their life, amplifying their energy body, and decorating themselves with it too, and maybe spraying some in their atmosphere to shield from radiation. Who knows? But there it is. So it's connecting the dots from Ireland to Mesopotamia to Greece to Atlantis, and all over the world into Asia. They're all connected. All connected to the Anunnaki and some of the forces they were battling as well.
Archaeology naysayers going, all these pyramids around the world are all so independently produced. It's a natural thing to do, is to build a pyramid. It's all independent city-states, all just doing their own natural thing, building up to the heavens, to the gods. And I'm like, sorry, we're at now explaining the Mercury underneath pyramids in both locations?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think a lot of people sense doom and gloom at every generation. Oh, this is the end times and things. This particular, and you don't have another life to compare it with unless you've gone through regression training, with a therapist to be able to tell. But this particular life for me has been very interesting in watching, almost the two nemesis, the United States and Russia, battling it out. When I was in the military for 7 years, we were brainwashed into believing the behind the curtain of how terrible the Russians were and everything, and kill a commie for mommy and the whole thing, and all of a sudden you start to realize this light dark battle that's going on and the different modalities that they used, from Greek amphitheaters when the Anunnaki were posing as the Olympic god of Greeks to the wars that play out on real stage in front of live news feeds now, so the whole world can see it. It's all part of the holographic simulation in this game. And you start to see that when you wake up. I think probably because we're at the highest level of consciousness. I know I was not at that level until just recently, and it was a progression.
Quantum physics says we're in a holographic nature of reality. It says it anyway. Why not? Why not put?
I know. I think in chapter 10, I got into that pretty heavy when on the tablet 10 when we start talking about time. That was one of my favorites. In Thoth talking about him seeking to understand time. As a matter of fact, I have to give you a little side story. On my Facebook page, I just got a posting from one of my followers. His name's Corey, and he's a musician out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And he stumbled across me and started following my stuff and watched changes go on in his life when he tried this hat on. He must be an experiential guy plus a theoretician, but he's got a pretty thick filter and a pretty smart guy. Anyway, so he decided to take on this challenge I gave him to set the time, kind of like Hootie and the Blowfish did.
Yep.
But in this sense, from the time of the standpoint relative to what Thoth has disclosed to us in this holographic game, and he took this on and wrote this song called Zin Uru. Okay.
Wow.
And posted it on my Facebook page, so people are listening to this. Go support him and go listen to this. And he actually posted the words up to it as well, the lyrics.
Oh, awesome.
But Zin Uru was in the tablets. She was the Lady of Light that Thoth described being taken hostage by one of the Dark Lords on Arulu. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he actually goes through this ritual that shows up on the Magus card where he puts out a circle of cinnabar, stands there in his certain outfit, and he describes this in the tablets where he basically asserts his right as the agent of Enki on this planet to succeed on her behalf and bring her back from Arulu. Well, it turns out to be his mother in my genealogy table, okay?
Wow.
She was married to Ningal, who was also known as Metatron, who was the prince of the underworld. Okay, so he was the soul energies in this karmic wheel, and Thoth was able to intervene on her behalf. And he saw this and wrote this song, these cycles of time that he understood by seeing this, and called it Zeniru. So it's pretty deep.
Do you ever think, Gerald, when they set up camp in another place, like they're in Sumer and they're appearing as these people's Sumerian names, and then they pop up in another place and then they have these different names? Do you think it's just all a game to these guys, that they're just, okay, let's start new identity, new name, let's try and, we'll use some of the old ideas, but we'll change a bit here, we'll have another little experiment, we'll tweak what we did last time? Yeah,
well, they're basically playing the Greek drama game, sending lessons to the underling slave through their interactions with them through the hologram. So, they architect conflagrations and disparity, and at the same time, they'll have you, if you look closely, and he tells you in this tablet, if you look closely, in the midst of the darkness, there will always be light. There will be some way out, some solution to it that the light offers up. And it's so interesting. Now you feel like a pawn on the end of a string that's being shown light, being shown darkness, and for your soul path to basically make one decision after the other at the forks in your road in your life to go this way or that way. And ultimately, he says in here, if you choose to follow the light, you'll be vectored ultimately to the place where you can ascend. That's what this is all about.
Wow.
Wow. And we're at that place. So this implies to me that knowing about these ascension windows, these cycles of time, corresponding to the place where you can get out of the simulator is very guarded knowledge. And it just so happens the Mayan calendar and all their documents, when they are sent by the Catholic Church via the Queen of Spain to go and occupy this area and steal their gold, well, one of the first things they destroy their culture, including all attempts at the Mayan codices and their calendars. Well, they didn't get them all, luckily.
Luckily enough, only a handful of these codices. I think this is one of the biggest, I want the word, I'm going to be non-negative here, but one of the biggest disasters of our history of the planet is the destruction of the codices of the Maya.
Do you think that's worse than the destruction that's going on in Iraq right now, where some forces under this label of ISIS, the mother of humanity, is destroying Sumerian artifacts, blowing up entire cities, ancient cities that were built by the Anunnaki? Well, so all of a sudden you go, okay, Enlil sending these forces on behalf of the Catholic Church through Spain over to the Yucatan, where Ningshita, Thoth, Hermes, Enki's son is raised consciousness, and look what happened. Cortez and Pizarro, the only two examples I need to give you. And these people in Mexico don't speak the Mayan language anymore, they speak Spanish. There you go.
Yeah.
So the Mayan culture has been pretty much trashed.
Yeah, I looked at one of the codices in the British Museum the last time I was there. They have a replica of one there, a facsimile of one. I have a little video of it. It's awesome. I mean, just the knowledge. It's because of the level of knowledge that's with the astronomy anyway. I will say that.
Right.
The level
of that particular one, these cycles of time that the Mayans that gave us. The fact that they had the Zulcan calendar that went with us, that showed the ascension of consciousness to go with that, they absolutely did not want you to know that. And here in this tab, he tells you, if you learn the space-time cycles, you too can be free. So what he's telling you, there's windows where you can get out of this illusion of Ka. Okay? Well, we're in that right now.
Ascension
Listen
windows.
up. We're in that. So, this is so important. So, another really profound little tip, this ninth ruler of the cycle. Now, remember, it was 3 through 9. There were two other beings that were in this 9 that were not accounted for, number 1 and 2. Well, I think number 1 had the 14 underworlds, or parallel underworlds, and the number 2 had the 9 parallel dimensions with our dimension. So those two, for some reason, were not involved in our karma. That's interesting to know. That only 3 through 9 are. Well, one tip he threw out at the end that I thought was really interesting, this chieftain, if you will, number 9, he said that an increase in consciousness is possible for us in this order of reality when 2 have become 1. In other words, when you mix your twin flame, male and female, the barrier has lifted, and then you're allowed it to proceed to grow from the form that you're in to the formless. Now listen, that's what he's saying. You're growing from the form of a material form into the formless as your light increases in your body. That's it. And at that point, it's an energy shift, right? Mm-hmm. You can be in the body or out of the body, and we know this as an intermediary. If you're able to experience an out-of-body experience, you know your consciousness, your intellect, your awareness can exist outside of your body. And for people who have experimentally had that, this second hand, you don't even have to question that. For people who haven't, they're watching ghost chasing shows on TV, trying to decide if there's anything beyond this life.
Wow.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah, these, here's the thing. I had all these authors around the 2012 period, and they're all talking about energy shifts, and everybody felt that everybody knew there was something there. All these people were being spokesperson, and then when it passed, they got their book sold, and everybody just walked away from it then. But here I have somebody like you, Gerald, showing and talking about these latent circuits and giving some practical understanding of what this whole shift is and these ascension windows and how they can actually activate your ascension in a practical sense with these latent circuits. And by far this Timothy Leary stuff has been definitely overlooked. It's been a grave disservice to his early research. But we have something very practical and very tangible to look at and understand this time period that we're in, which is still going. It's evolving now. Well,
this is where it kind of gets the burden of awareness and responsibility. Listen, I gave people an equation 5A in my book.
Oh, yeah.
That will give you a number to measure exactly what your energy is, and you see what the maximum is, because we know what the wavelengths and the frequencies of light are at each chakra. They were given to us. Now we have instruments to measure them. So I'm telling you, if you really want to be responsible, yeah, you can measure your telomeres to see how your Starfire Girl's prolonging your life. Great, but guess what? We may not have meant to be eternal in these bodies. What he's telling you is you're evolving with material form into an energetic form, just like them.
Sure. You know, Gerald, I hope I'm not too morbid to say this, but I can just see your epitaph there, Gerald, and it says, "Here lies the man who came up with equation 5A." Sorry, bro.
And they tried to create a grave for him, but he just disappeared into light. Don't know where he went.
Equation 5A for me, Gerald, is an awesome equation, and I know you refer to it a lot. And it's a beautiful way to take some existing physics and engineering and to understand the human body, the human energy equation, who we are and what we do. And it applies to chakras.
I like this little tidbit that this chieftain gave us, this number 9. He said when two have become one. Now think about that from a superposition principle of you mixing your chakra energy with somebody else who you're on an evolutionary path with. All of a sudden the energy gets amplified. He's saying, ta-da! You could. There's a way out right there if you realize it. Well, now you realize that Thoth was the energy of himself and Isis together as the hermaphrodite, right? Archetypal form. And now they're telling you, here's a way that you can do it as well. So, just based on that alone, it ought to be a good, prelude to the handbook of life that seeking homogeneous relationship with the same sex ain't going to give you the same result as what he's telling you right here.
Sure. Gerald,
that's just me. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just telling you right here. He's saying this one's better, and it could get you out of your illusion of college.
Sure. Joe, we're almost at the other final thoughts there to wrap up on. I'm going to finish out on Emerald Tablet 7.
No, I just note to this little prayer he brings at the end of his tablet, where he's facilitating intervention from the creator of all, which he venerates as well, just like his father did. So, people might call this, this is all, they're all fallen angels, and I really hate that when Thoth is included with his father Enki as part of the Nephilim fallen angel theory that the right-wing Christian community has signed up to. That's a lie. That is a lie. So when you read this and see this, you can see that he's working for the benefit of all mankind to try to get us out of our state of illusion. Now, those that want to resist change, don't want to take the red pill instead of the blue pill, he's not going to intervene on your behalf. You belong to the dark forces, and they're going to have their way with you.
Sure. Well, Gerald, I'm going to finish off on Emerald Tablet 7, The Seven Lords. I'm going to play this one out. Of course, you've been listening to today's author, Gerald Clark. You can go to his website, geraldclark77.com, and check out his coming May Ascension Symposium in the Yucatan. Really excited about that one, Gerald. Gerald, thank you for your time today. It's been an awesome show again.
It's always a good show with you, James, because we're spiritual brothers. Whether you're in Ireland or wherever you are, I knew that the day I met you, so I expect nothing less. So thank you for taking the time to make it happen.
Thank you, brother. I'll play out Emerald Tablet 7, and I'll see you very, very soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Harkye, O man, and list to my voice. Open thy mind space and drink of my wisdom. Dark is the pathway of life that ye travel, many the pitfalls that lie in the way. Seek ye ever to gain greater wisdom, attain and it shall be light on thy way. Open thy soul, O man, to the cosmic, and let it flow in as one with thy soul. Light is eternal and darkness is fleeting. Seek ye ever, O man, for the light. Know ye that ever as light fills thy being, darkness for thee shall soon disappear. Open thy souls to the brothers of brightness, let them enter and fill thee with light. Fill up thy eyes to the light of the cosmos, keep thou ever thy face to the goal. Only by gaining the light of all wisdom art thou one with the infinite goal. Seek ye ever the oneness eternal, seek ever the light into one. Hear ye, O man, list to my voice, singing the song of light and of life. Throughout all space light is prevalent, encompassing all with its banner it flames. Seek ye forever in the veil of the darkness, somewhere ye shall surely find light. Hidden and buried, lost to man's knowledge, deep in the finite the infinite exists. Lost but existing, flowing through all things, living in all the infinite brain. In all space there is only one wisdom. Though seeming decided, it is one in the one. All that exists comes forth from the light, and the light comes forth from the all. Everything created is based upon order. Law rules the space where the infinite dwells. Forth from equilibrium came the great cycles, moving in harmony toward infinity's end. Know ye, O man, that far in the space-time, infinity itself shall pass into change. Hear ye and list to the voice of wisdom. Know that all is all evermore. Know that through time thou may pursue wisdom, and find evermore light on the way. Know that through time thou may pursue wisdom, and find evermore light on the way. Aye, thou shalt find that ever receding, thy goal shall elude thee from day until day. Long time ago in the halls of Amente, I Thoth stood before the lords of the cycles. Mighty in their aspects of power, mighty they in the wisdom unveiled. Led by the dweller, first did I see them, but afterwards free I was of their presence, free to enter their conclave at will. Oft did I journey down the dark pathway unto the hall where the light ever glows. Learned I the master of cycles, wisdom brought from the cycles above. Manifest they in this cycle, as guides of man to the knowledge of all. 7 are they, mighty in power, speaking these words through me to men. Time after time stood I before them, listening to words that came not with sound. Once they said unto me, O man, wouldst thou gain wisdom? Seek for it in the heart of the flame. Wouldst thou gain knowledge of power? Seek ye it in the heart of the flame. Would ye be one with the heart of the flame? Seek then within thine own hidden flame. Many the time spoke they to me, teaching me wisdom not of the world, showing me ever new paths to brightness, teaching me wisdom brought from above, giving knowledge of operation, learning of law, the order of all. Spoke to me again the 7, saying, From far beyond time are we, come, O man. Traveled we from beyond space-time, aye, from the place of infinity's end. When ye and all thy brethren were formless, formed forth we were from the order of all. Not as men are we, though once we too were as men. Out of the great void we were formed forth in order by law. For know ye that which is formed truly is formless, having form only to thine eyes. And again unto me spoke the seventh, saying, Child of light, O Thoth, art thou, free to travel the bright path upward, until at last all ones become one. Forth were we formed after our order, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Know ye that these are the number of cycles that we descend from unto man, each having here a duty to fulfill, each having here a force to control. Yet are we one with the soul of our cycle, yet are we two seeking a goal. Far beyond man's conception, infinity extends into a greater than all. There in a time that is yet on a time, we shall all become one, with a greater than all. Time and space are moving in circles. Know ye their law, and ye too shall be free. Aye, free shall ye be to move through the cycles, past the guardians that dwell at the door. Then to me spoke he of nine, saying, Eons and eons have I existed, knowing not life and tasting not death. For know ye, O man, that far in the future life and death shall be one with the all, each so perfected by balancing the other, that neither exists in the oneness of all. In men of this cycle the life force is rampant, but life in its growth becomes one with them all. Here I manifest in your cycle, but yet am I there in your future of time. Yet to me time exists not, for in my world time exists not, for formless are we. Life have we not, but yet have existence, fuller and greater and freer than thee. Man is a flame bound to a mountain, but we in our cycle shall ever be free. Know ye, O man, that when ye have progressed into the cycle that lengthens above, life itself will pass to the darkness, and only the essence of so shall remain. Then to me spoke the Lord of Eight, saying, All that ye know is but part of little. Not as yet have ye touched on the great. Far out in space were the light beings supreme. Came I into the light, formed was I also, but not as ye are. Body of light was my formless form formed. Know I not life, and know I not death. Yet master am I of all that exists. Seek ye to find the path through the barriers. Travel the road that leads to the light. Spoke again to me the nine, saying, Seek ye to find the path to beyond. Not impossible is it to grow to a consciousness above. For when two have become one, and one has become the all, know ye the barrier has lifted, and ye are made free of the road. Grow thou from form to the formless, free may thou be of the road. Thus through ages I listened, learning the way to the all. Now lift I my thoughts to the all thing, list ye and hear when it calls. O light all-pervading, one with the all and all with one, flow thou to me through the channel. Enter thou so that I may be free. Make me one with the all-soul, shining from the blackness of night. Free let me be of all space-time, free from the veil of the night. I, a child of light, command, free from the darkness to be. Formless am I to the light soul, formless yet shining with light. Know I the bonds of the darkness must shatter and fall before light. Now give I this wisdom, free may ye be, O man, living in light and in brightness. Turn not thy face from the light. Thy soul dwells in realms of brightness, ye are a child of the light. Turn thy thoughts inward, not outward, find thou the light soul within. Know that thou art the master, all else is brought from within. Grow thou to realms of brightness, hold thou thy thoughts on the light. Know thou art one with the cosmos, a flame and a child of the light. Now to thee gave I warning, let not the thought turn away. Know that the brightness flows through thy body, for I turn not to the dark brothers, that come from the brothers of black, but keep thine eyes ever lifted, thy soul in tune with the light. Take ye this wisdom and heed it. List to my voice and obey.
Us, obviously, intentionally. And we called it a holographic, and then connected it briefly, you'll see, to the current models of dimensions and string theory. So when you see that those are connected with exactly what he's saying here, our scientists are just now catching up with them. So here's what he says. He says, For know ye that which is formed truly is formless, having only form to our eyes. In other words, it's a false perception, the illusion of transient matter. How many times have we been told this? Yet we pound on the table and we throw back the beer and we go, we want the blue pill, not the red pill, right? Right from the Matrix. I want the illusion, not the reality, because the reality is sometimes hard to swallow.
Isn't the Matrix movie, Gerald, just so riddled with all this stuff? I mean, you got the woman called Trinity, you've got, the red pill, blue pill scenario, the enslavement of humanity. Isn't it so pertinent to what we're talking about?
Well, you start to ask yourself, how's it any different than what he's telling you here? Is that, long ago these dark lords came here, set up a system to enslave everyone through various sensory modes, and even at the soul level. If you're gullible enough to throw your alliance behind one of the names that they say is your savior for, or whatever, or your God, then they got you. Think about it like a vote at the end of a zodiacal house. It's a big chess game of the manipulation of these avatars that don't even know they're avatars.
I grew up in a Catholic country, Gerald, and the Lord is my shepherd, there's nothing I shall want. And I just went, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting myself in the same class as sheep. What do you want me to say, that I'm actually a sheep? And this is what they get. This is what they brainwash people in a Catholic This is your host James, and I'm delighted to be talking to today's author, Gerald Clark. We have been battling through some heavy-hitting shows. Don't forget, they're all in the playlist for you to easily find. Of course, you can check out today's author, and you'll find everything Gerald does there, background information, and he's got an excellent blog there as well. You can also check out his latest document on Nibiru, which is super fascinating and well-researched and very enlightening with the knowledge pertaining within. So back on the line with me, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm back with you.
Great.
Hey, I wanted to take this minute to just right up front, and I want to talk to all of your listeners and my listeners. Mm-hmm. Listen, James is spreading information to the point where people are stealing it from him. So please support him by listening to his show, subscribing to his Capricorn Radio, and really support him.
Thank you, brother.
Please.
Thank you. I give as much of it as I can for free, Gerald, but yes, I can't devote my life to doing something without making some sort of money to eat and live and travel a little bit, to do the things I need to do. But thank you for that, Gerald. I really appreciate that. And yes, I have been battled for 3 days with copyright fraud, but I'm surviving. Yeah, Gerald, I just wanted to plug in your websites there to get people there to go and listen. I know you do a lot of background information on what you do, and that's wonderful. And it's very easy for me.
So relevant to me that I thought, and I listened to the other stuff that had been done on the Emerald tablets on the internet, mm-hmm. and not all of them, but some of them I just found repulsive, mm-hmm. especially after. You know what the ultimate factor for me was on these tablets is the way they made me feel after I exposed my eyes and my ears to them. That's our ultimate decider of whether something is right for us in our path. You know it, and I know it. And I challenge anybody to read or listen to it, feel it's in it.
Even as the audiobook, Gerald, which is great, and I love that you took the time to personally do your own audiobook, and I know I gave that to our friend Publish of Italy, and he's loving the audiobook at the moment, by the way. So just a little feedback on that. It's great that you took that time.
Perfect. Yeah, really great guy. Thanks for introducing me to him.
Yeah, and I'm glad that, that you took that time, Gerald, because to hear an author talk about their own audiobook, and it's great because you can come back to the Emerald tablets, you can be lazy, you can have them read for you, that's great, but you just can't kind of sit down and just want to read these all in the one day.
Yeah,
you can.
I know. You have to. Well, he tells you almost to make a religion out of it, to keep reading it. He tells you right at the beginning, you know, you got to read this 100 times.
It's like an encyclopedia, Gerald. You don't read an encyclopedia from start to finish, A to Z, and go, that was great knowledge in there. You don't do that, you know. And I just want to put this out to the audience because there's a format there. There's a list of tablets. Each one tackles something very, very pertinent to us as human beings, that our very essence. And like you say, we're in this spiritual warfare game at the moment, and the stakes are high. It's ascension or destruction. And you know, take each tablet, look at it in its own merit, each one, do it by section if you have to, you know, and come back to it. If you don't get it straight away, come back to it. You'll get it, you know.
Yeah. Well, there's something else that kind of comes out in this. You know, we started talking about the models of this order of reality that's been created for us.
To get complacent and just do the shows with you and enjoy them, but I have to do that. But here we are, Gerald, back into Emerald Tablet 7, the Seven Lords.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Let's get it straight to it, Gerald. Let's launch into this one.
Well, we left off with Thoth encouraging us to use all the armament tools that he called magic to fight off the dark. And Thoth encourages us to keep seeking light through our dark paths, you know, recognizing that there's dark poured on your path. And it's coincident with where you are in your chakras, so don't forget that. Mm-hmm. He also tells us that all is created based on order and light, which emanates from the eternal source. I like this one. He calls it the infinite brain. I know. And then the very next point he brings up is, oh, by the way, we're told that even infinity itself changed far in space. Now, there's something.
That's a mind bender, Gerald.
Infinity is going to change at some unprescribed point in future time. He tells you that later as well, expounds on it a little bit, as he's having a discussion with the Seven Lords, and that's what this tablet is named after, is these cycle masters who say they came from beyond the space-time, where they were formless, from the great void, and each one having their duty, their function in controlling certain cycles. Now, when I see that and realize that multiple times I've affiliated them with the Hindu gods that are controlling the quantized levels of consciousness in your chakras, I go on to say, most likely, they're controlling the signal amplitude, phase, and frequency of the composite energy allowed at each chakra. Now, how would they do that? You know, either using an external energy field to shut you down or to put you in a life circumstance where you don't access those. Either one would work.
Wow.
And so you think about that and go, wow, that's kind of terrible. This first cycle master, his job is to make sure everybody starts out enveloped in darkness.
I do this when I'm on the shows, Gerald. I stop and I still ponder again. I've listened to the audiobook. I read the book. You know, I've talked the knowledge in several times, but there's so much to it. And when I listen to these Emerald Tablets, Gerald, Anunnaki of Nibiru, some there, Gerald, but pertinent to Mercury Rising, 7 Planet Mercury Rising, where, you know, the knowledge that's in these tablets, Gerald, is spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced. There's technical stuff in there. The stuff
you get exposed to it.
Just pertinent to our origins. I mean, I have to keep checkpointing this for people that are just checking in on these shows. I mean, I don't see anything bad in there, Gerald. And they seem to be
some of the most profound knowledge you have. You know, if there was a handbook of life to be written for us, most of this stuff would have been in it.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what you were up against from the word go.
And I know there's negative people out there and naysayers, but if you look at the information in it, you know, just look at it. It's spiritual, knowledgeable, advanced, and pertinent, profound. You know, it's about our origins, our civilization, where we can go, what we can achieve. Tell me that's not something worth reading.
Well, you know how I actually thought about this. I was thinking deeply about whether I should include this Emerald Tablets in my book. It was a big decision for me. I was like, well, you know, it'll take up a lot of the space of the book. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of deep stuff in there, but this is Thoth's deepest knowledge. How could I not present that right now when what we're facing is ascension or destruction? So it was